Good morning everyone and welcome back to a bit of an odd video while we cull some time while I'm putting together the final touches on Wave 2 of the custom set showcase. But today I just wanted to put all 24 days of the Advent calendar together for you in one big video and explain a bit more about some of the stuff I missed back in December. Now I know it's February and probably no one really wants to watch this right now, but it is important to note that considering we're about to go into Wave 2 and that starts with Z0015, this guy is part of the custom set showcase, so he needs to be included in the same way. So that's what I'm doing. So we'll start by opening up the front of our advent calendar here, which is set in Breath of the Wild's flight range. And let's take a look at all of our doors. You can see here we have our snowy backdrop for you to put all the little builds on. You can see the Christmas choo-choo at the side and then all the doors. So I'll give you a second to find door number 1. And here we go. So day 1 in this calendar was a Korok from Breath of the Wild using a shield piece in green as its face, and this one in particular had one of those little flyers, so he's a Korok in mid-air, and I thought this was a really cute idea to have the flyer with a Korok, you know, keep messing it up and mixing it up, because I've done different Koroks in other sets in the past, and I wanted to include a different variant in this calendar because there's still quite a few for me to attempt to do for variation across my 9 waves. And this guy also was designed to combine with a build which we'll see later on. But moving on to day number 2. And let's take a look. And this was the first minifigure of the calendar and an exclusive Christmas variant of Zelda from Breath of the Wild. And this was the Christmas Jumper Zelda. And this was more of the homely of the figures that I wanted to do. I wanted to take from different aspects of Christmas, from classic Christmas to kind of modern inside Christmas, as well as a fantasy element as well. But you can see here that the Christmas jumper extends just below her waist and contains the 4 rune symbols from the Great Plateau, some silent princesses, a triforce, some squiggly lines, as well as some snowflakes. And one of my bits I'd be most excited for if I got this calendar would be the present boxes, which are done in the colours of the golden goddesses, and therefore this one is Nairu for wisdom. And you can see her hair is also done up in the Mrs. Claus bow piece from 2014's Santa's Workshop. I know it's been used before then, but that's where I can see it from. But I'll give you a minute now. Find day number 3. And here we go. So day number 3 was a classic kind of shop area from Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and pretty much every game where there were 4 items which you could select from, and in this case this is all of the potions. So you can see in the bottom right left there we have an empty bottle and then a red potion to the next to it, and above it you also have a blue or green potions which are either going to be both magic hearts and magic respectively, or it will be a stamina potion and a swiftness or water breathing potion depending on the games that you go for, and that's just part of the imagination. But it's a nice simple build that in particular could add to your castle town market setup, and it looks really great in my opinion. I really like the bottle style for this kind of wave, and I think this one looks really good. But I'll give you now a second to find day number 4. And this is the build that goes with the Korok, as we'll see in a second, but this is one of those little statues from Breath of the Wild where you can place an offering, and there are apples later in the Advent calendar which allow you to do that. But it's been Christmasified with a little beanie, but it's a nice small build with a transparent rod, so that you could attach the Korok flying as if you've solved the puzzle and he then appears, which is just a nice way to make these landscapes just a bit more useful. As while these Advent calendars are largely centered around world building, if I think about the Harry Potter ones, building on the Yule Ball and all of that stuff in general, I chose this to kind of expand some of the aspects of your Breath of the Wild world, etc. And day number 5. And day number 5 over here was a table from Hyrule Castle, and you can see that just based off the colour scheme with the browns, dark reds and gold ornamental areas around the edges. And you've got a variety of food on the table, which makes this quite a desirable day, with the weird ice cream things representing some centerpieces and other stuff, the yellow cream pie, the goblet, egg and hot dog. But what would a table be without our day number 6? I'll give you a second to find it. And day number 6 was a chair, rounding out the first quarter of the Advent calendar. And you can see right now that this one was backed with a pentagonal shield piece to represent like the armrest part, and then you also those dark orange puppy ears for trellises along the sides, and I think it definitely fits the color scheme of the castle. Those were the first 6 all lined up. You can see them there, all in a row. And now we move on to day number 7. And day number 7 was another figure, and this was the Christmas Choo Choo, which was built in the exact same way as the other Choo Choos from my Wave 1 of my custom set showcase. But in this case, you can see all of the Christmas lights he's been tangled up in, like he's a bit of a Christmas tree, but also like he's just wandered into a tied up bundle. And the deranged look on his face really makes this figure. I really do love this guy, actually. He came out so well. With all the little lights all over the place and the same splat-based build. And after the police station, this guy's actually now possible to build with the splat piece there in green. Day number 8 is a of Link's house, and across the Advent calendar there were 3 of these to help expand sort of a landscape view, either to put the table and such, or just to have as a nice separate thing. And this one in particular had a little dresser with a silent princess on top, some clips to connect with the other sections, and the exclusive Champions Ballad DLC picture frame that would be hung up in Link's house in Hateno. And this is currently an exclusive piece that I designed for this one, using 4 renders of the champions as well as Link and Zelda in the correct uniforms for this picture. So it's a nice simplistic version. I hope to redo it at some point, make it look a bit better, but I'm particularly pleased with how this one turned out at the moment. But moving onwards, we now are on day number 9. And the whole point of doing this was to share a couple of extra facts about what I was doing when I was designing this one. And you can see that this is another one of Link's house here. And I don't know why I went for chimney, but there's a couple of tropes which always seem to appear in Advent calendars, such as a Santa figure, a tree, and commonly in city, a chimney. So here we have our medium nougat brick masonry chimney with some embers in the fireplace and a Sheikah slate on the mantle, which makes this the second appearance of the Sheikah slate besides the accessory pack uh, based off Age of Calamity. And this was a nice simple build. Most of these ones, they're just world builders. So let's move on to day number 10. And day number 10 was a training dummy, loosely based off these ones from Twilight Princess. And this was kind of to tease the upcoming inclusion of Link in the calendar. But it's also just a nice interactive side build, and you could put this pretty much anywhere it would sort of world build, I guess. The top hat was more of a Christmassy inclusion, but the sword and shield was designed to kind of be like a little weapon for it to fight with, sort of like the Ninjago Dojo dummies, but these ones are a lot more simplistic. But I think they turned out well. It seemed to be an inclusion that I really did need to do, so here it is. But anyway, moving on to day number 11. Day number 11 was Tarako with a Christmas hat, and as you can see here, this is the exact same build as from the accessory pack. However, this one has a Christmas hat on the top. Still not sure how that would attach, and he also has an extra leg because reasons. And this is a well-designed figure in my opinion. I like the shaping. I mean, I did the best I could at the time when I designed this. Obviously, I designed this calendar just before Age of Calamity release, so there was still no decent imagery of him, or at least when I came up with the design for his figure. So it's kind of stuck in the past now. I hope to redo him when I get the next opportunity for that. But anyway, it's just that classic Christmas thing, like the Porg and all those other characters from Star Wars, where they put the hat on it and shove it in the set. But let's go on to day number 12, which was a gingerbread version of Link, and this ticks the box of fantasy Christmas figure with that exclusive head mold, which is possibly a bit unrealistic for the gingerbread hat with a Link hat on it. And you can see that the printing is all very simplistic, but it's designed to be like a simplistic icing. And this guy also comes with his green box and his Feor's Triforce piece, which is a nice print, I think, to get, even if it's not the most like plausible thing. But I like it a lot, and I'm really pleased with how this came out. So looking at the second of the 4 periods of the days in this Advent calendar, you can see this lineup was a lot more figure heavy, with 2 of our Link's house builds, and the third one will be coming up shortly. But as we move into day number 13, we can see that we have the first of a two-part build, and this would be slightly confusing to look at to start with because it looks a bit odd, but this is the beginning of the Master Cycle Zero, and this is the kind of chassis, the body piece. But let's quickly move on to day number 14 so you can get the full experience of this build, and that is this right here. You've got the little wheels and the little bit of blue to represent the horse head, as well as that unicorn horn at the front, as well as making good use of this Hero Factory shoulder element piece to create that backrest. And this is more in micro scale, but also almost minifigure scale build of the Master Cycle Zero, and I'm actually really pleased with how it turned out. I'm currently working on a minifigured scaled motorcycle attachment for the Master Cycle Zero as part of the next wave of custom sets, but I thought this was a good inclusion for an advent calendar considering they almost always have micro vehicle builds. Taking a look at day 15, we have a little woodland scene with a fairy meant to represent Navi. And because I didn't know when I was actually going to get it to include Navi in a regular retail set, I decided to include her in this calendar as a somewhat desirable, even if we hate her, figure. And you can see that she is accompanied by a little bit of woodland, which would be a good parts pack, some Silent Princess flowers, another one of those transparent rods, and a log print as well. So another little world builder that people might be interested in just for the parts, but you never really know. So on to day number 16. And this was the final segment of the Lynx house build with a little window and a wreath. And really this Lynx house wasn't particularly the biggest inclusion or the best, but I thought it was a nice little touch to fill out some of the days with some nice Christmassy house homely feel. And you can see the wreath here done with two red pieces to represent the bow and the little window before. And the thing I did with all of the houses is that you could easily remove all of the Christmassy pieces if you wanted a little half shell of a house. But to be honest, this calendar is probably more drawn towards stuff like the champion picture from the other day and the Chica Slate and all of the cool figures and Navi and some other bits that we haven't touched yet. But here's the three houses all together, kind of creating a little bit of a wall, although massive gaps. But then again, this is an advent calendar. So let's move on. On to day 17. And day 17 was a micro scale build of the Great Plateau or Central Plateau tower from Breath of the Wild. And you can see here you've got the little steps going up the side to the blue shikery writing at the top. And I think this is a fairly good and accurate micro scale representation, or at least as good as you can really get. I mean, we really are limited with pieces of this scale, and we don't like doing round things, at least not if you get the iconic, if you want the iconic steps and such. But I think that it turned out well, and I'm really pleased with it as a build. It feels very advent calendar-y to me. I mean, we've seen less accurate things in advent calendars. But moving on to day number 18, where we have a Majora's Mask reference. And again, at what scale am I going to get to draw or have a small moon in a set? So I thought this was the perfect inclusion to create the off in the distance moon from Majora's Mask that would also look a bit Christmassy. And that's on another one of those transparent rods. And as well, you've got the telescope in gold, kind of representing the Astral Observatory, but also not really. But anyway, I thought it was a nice inclusion. It's a way for people to get a moon from Majora's Mask, which is ever so iconic and something that people really would want, or at least I'd want. So I think it's a nice idea to include it here. But let's take a look at the third set of 4 group of 6, and you can see here that that is the Master Cycle Zero all the way through to Majora's Mask Moon, and it's another good selection. No figures this time, but as you all know, we've got a couple more figures and other builds to take a look at, so let's move into day 19. And day 19 was the obligatory Christmas tree, another one that Zelda fans were absolutely craving over for the inclusion of spirit orbs and the champion's abilities on 1x1 round tiles meant to represent the decorations. Now you only get one tree in this day, but you can see it here from 2 different sides with the 4 orbs spread equally across the sides, making use of the tie dagger piece to build up that tree shape and having the spirit orb as the crowning star. And this is just a lovely idea for a Zelda tree, and I'm really happy with this one. I'm so glad that I got to put the champion's abilities on it and therefore actually include them in another retail set. Let's move on now to number 20. And day 20 was a really simplistic build representative of the blue flame kind of lanterns from Breath of the Wild, which you light along the way to the tech lab, and I'm really not sure how this made it into the set, but it is a nice basic inclusion to put in the advent calendar with that really nice blue flame piece on a slightly oversized stick as well down there. But it's another nice inclusion, some world building, I guess, and that blue flame is another draw. But moving on to day 21, we're closing in on the end here. And this is a repeat figure from the wave. This is the red Bokoblin, which was seen in my Bokoblin Battle Pack custom set from Custom Wave 1. And I think this is a really nice, just general army builder to include in here, sort of like how Star Wars always include a Stormtrooper. And he is here in the exact same form from that set, always a good army builder, and you can see that right here. But let's take a look at day number 22, which is a cooking pot based off, again, Breath of the Wild. It's a fairly Breath of the Wild heavy advent calendar, and here you have 2 dark red apples, which is a new color for that piece, which I think is a really great one. And these are the apples that I was talking about earlier that could be placed on the Korok Shrine in day 4 if you wanted that full storytelling. Either way, here we have a cooking pot on a little flame build, and the apples are obviously the baked apples from the game. Let's take a look at day number 23, the last build and penultimate day of this calendar, and it was a microscale organ, and I sort of meant this to represent the organ from Ocarina of Time. And you can see that we're using the grill plates in the old-fashioned way of making piano keys, as well as the gold candle pieces to kind of represent the organ bars. And obviously this is extremely miniaturized, but I still think it looks good and would work as a playability item in the final set. And that final day, of course, leaves one minifigure, our Santa minifigure, and that is Santa Ganondorf, here based off his Ocarina of Time appearance, reusing Griphook's hairpiece, a Santa hat, as well as some really nice Christmas-fied piecing, as well as some nice Christmas-fied printing, one of which was where these golden triangles were turned into snowflakes, baubles replaced some hanging like armor, some candy canes, some white fluff, and some holly, as well as a very annoyed expression like he's being cursed, and you have the dark red present box with the Din's piece of Triforce there as well. And there are those last 6 lined up for you. Here we have the front of box image, sort of with some of them laid out, but not all of them. You can see in particular I put all of the house-like builds together with the table, chair, the 3 Lynx pieces, and the organ, as well as all the minifigures and exciting things, bar the Christmas Choo Choo. But here is all 24 of our builds lined up together, and I really am a fan of this calendar. When I first made it, I was a bit doubtful of whether I'd actually done a good job, but looking back on it 3 months later, I'm actually really proud of how it turned out and what I was able to achieve here. I was able to have a lot of fun with this one and include a couple of bits that I don't think we'd see in a normal retail set, like that Champions photo or the Christmas Choo or the Christmas variants, I guess, and the Majora's Mask Moon in particular. But this was a really fun one, and I look forward to doing another one tied in with Wave 3 at the end of 2021. I've got to start thinking of what I want to put in that one, but I hope you enjoyed this reflection and you're not too mad that some of you may have seen this before, but I thought I'd draw some more credit to it as it's the next set in custom set line, because Wave 2 is starting very soon. So stay tuned, be patient, because it's going to be even grander than this and Wave 1. So I hope you stick around for that, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.